Welcome everyone to Appy Hour. I'm thrilled to have you here with us. We have some great panelists lined up today because we're going to do something different. We're actually going to do a panel discussion about the client onboarding experience. I think for all of us, this is kind of a painful process. And so this panel that's here with us is really going to talk us through what their experience is and what they've done to improve both their internal processes and then also the experience for the client. So welcome. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that way everybody can see where we are and get started. Looks good, everyone, right?
Everything looks great.
Okay, fantastic. Okay.
To me, it looks great.
Well, good. All right. Well, I'm Liz Scott, and as you can see, I am up there by myself today. So my co-host, who's normally with me, is going to be part of our panelist discussion. So I'm going to be interviewing our panel so that way we can really pull out what is it they're doing and share it with everyone, because that's really one of my favorite things about being in our community is that we openly share with each other what we're doing, because really there's not competition. Like there's enough work there to go around for everyone. So how can we make it the best experience possible? What I do in my firm every day is I help small businesses with their QuickBooks needs. So I specialize with a lot of integrations, which tends to lead to a lot of e-commerce clients. So I love e-commerce. I love this conversation. Really one of the things I do is a lot of projects. So as you can imagine, that's a lot of client engagements. So this is going to be just a really helpful, interesting conversation for just, being a spectator as well. So I want to say thank you to our Champagne sponsor, Right Networks, and they are the leading cloud hosting provider for accounting professionals. And many of us have been using QuickBooks Desktop and hosting it in Right Networks for years. So we want to say thank you to them for having that spot for us and helping us bring this content. And today, our sponsor is Practice Ignition. And so they are really going to do a nice job of showing a demo later. And so it's going to be really good for being able to go through using technology for that onboarding experience and how best to automate. So some options there. So Heather, normally I get to say, hey, I'm passing it to you to introduce yourselves, but today you are a panelist. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about your firm and what you do?
Sure. So my name is Heather Satterley. I'm a CPA, and I actually have two companies that I work in. I have Satterley Training and Consulting, which is a consultancy firm that helps small and mid-sized businesses and accounting firms to automate their internal processes and accounting processes. So I do a lot of contract work. I do a lot of training. And then I'm also a partner in Back Office Ally, which is a bookkeeping and tax firm here in Portsmouth, Rhode Island, although we have clients all over the place. And so I kind of split my time between those two companies. So that's what I'm doing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Brian, you want to share what you do and where you're located?
Sure. Yeah, so I'm the lone Canadian on this panel. Please don't beat me up for being Canadian. Yeah, exactly. We do say A lot. I'm the CEO of Blueprint Accounting. I have a business partner, Sean Duffy. We're located in Ottawa, Canada. We do service all of Canada, but we basically offer bookkeeping, taxes, VCFO, controller type stuff. So various industries, kind of all over the place, starting niche down this year, but yeah, we'll figure that out as we move along.
That's fantastic. And then Josh, you want to share with us?
Yeah, my name is Josh Lance. I am a CPA and the founder of Lance CPA Group. We are a virtual and remote CPA practice specialized in craft breweries and digital agencies. We have been around for about 5 years. I live in Chicago, Illinois. I have a team that's kind of spread out across the United States. And in addition to that, I'm also the head of accounting at Practice Ignition. So what that really means is I am interacting with the accounting community and helping accountants as they build their practice using Practice Ignition.
And I want to go ahead and say that one of the things that's really exciting is because you have this dual role, whenever we have our demo later, you're going to be able to like really show us not only just the product features, but then also the use cases. And so I'm just super thrilled about that. Thank you for doing our demo today.
You're welcome.
So I want to dive in just a little bit more so that way everybody really understands what your firms do and how they operate. So I think Heather was sharing just a little bit about, she does a couple of different things inside of her 2 different firms, which means sometimes that client experience is very different. So Heather, you want to kind of take it off there and tell us, do you focus on a particular niche?
So in Back Office Ally, not yet. So we're new. We just launched in December of 2019. We have 7 clients now, so we're not doing too bad for a brand new firm. But we're kind of trying to find where our feet are and what we really excel at. So we're building our team. We're about to bring on our 4th team member, so that's exciting. We're getting ready to scale. We finally got all our internal processes documented, and we're ready to go. So right now we have a couple of contractor clients, and then we also have an Airbnb business. And then we also have a couple of property management companies. So right now we're kind of have our hands in a lot of different places. Ultimately, my partner, Connie Walsh, she and I would love to niche. So that's our plan. We're not there yet. So we're still kind of exploring where our core competencies are, where our interests, and what types of companies we want to be working with in that particular firm. With Satterley Training Consulting, as I mentioned, that's a project firm. So I don't have recurring clients. I don't do accounting in that firm. I do coaching. So I coach other accounting professionals that are looking to automate their internal processes. I work with their teams to help them find which applications work best for the way they work together. And then I also work with, small and mid-sized businesses. So that are also looking to train their staff, automate, and implement technology. So that's kind of what I'm doing.
That's great. And Brian, I'm going to pop a question over to you because I kind of know this about you, that you had some firm growth here recently. And so I'm curious how that's going and what are you doing? Have you niched? Have you decided that you've got employees or contractors? What are you doing there with your business?
Yeah, we've definitely had a lot of growth recently for sure. We're up to, I guess we'll say 7 employees now. So we have myself running operations, my business partner, Sean, who does sales and marketing. And then he has like a marketing coordinator underneath him. And then we have 3 full-time bookkeepers and 1 part-time. Not really niched, but we're looking at this year, we're kind of focusing on construction, not-for-profit, fitness, professional services, mostly marketing, and then retail e-commerce. So we're, Sean going into kind of that sales and marketing role and having that marketing coordinator. Now we can actually focus on those ones and start kind of building some content around that. So you probably see a lot of content from us over the next little while on these specific industries. So keep an eye out for that.
Okay, well, I'm gonna have to ask more about the marketing later because we all struggle with that as accountants.
Yeah,
we do.
Yeah, so that's really, really exciting. That's going to be fun to see what all comes out of having that person on the team. So Josh, you want to fill us in a little bit more about your firm? So do you do projects? Do you do ongoing engagements? What's the focus?
Yeah, so we mainly do kind of client accounting and advisory type services with tax. So it's very much on an ongoing basis, monthly recurring deals with our client base. It's primarily in craft breweries and digital agencies. So 2 kind of different industries that we've kind of dived into, but both have kind of similar type people that run them. So we kind of know the people and know how they work and operate. And from that, we've been able to kind of build into those niches. We would like to do more on the advisory side and less on tax. I think we're probably a little heavy on the tax right now, but that's just kind of one of those things. As you grow, you start to kind of build up, and then you kind of see, okay, where do we need to kind of shift our efforts to better align ourselves to where we want to be in the future.
I really like that we've got a lot of diversity here. And so I'm going to say, even in the chat, go ahead and pop in there. What is it that you're focused on and kind of the firm size? Because that helps with knowing, what's the best onboarding experience and what's your options there. So I'm going to go ahead and move us over to another share my screen right here. Go ahead and move us over to another question that I've got, which is all about the onboarding. So if we're talking about client experience and you're bringing in new clients, really it's important to be able to collect documents from them. It's important to ask different questions of them. So, you know, being able to talk about some technology, you know, I love that that's really where our conversation today is going to land, is based on some technology. But does anybody have any thoughts about just what client onboarding experience so far and what you've learned along the way?
Well, I can chime in if that's okay. I'll go first. So when I think of client onboarding, for me, I think of it as where the sales process ends and where the engagement process begins. So, you know, for me, the onboarding starts at the point where we've got a signed engagement letter, and I'm ready to get the information that I need from the client to start doing the work, and also getting the information I need to start doing the work, and then also getting them onboarded to the different applications, the technology that I'm using. So that is really where those go hand in hand. Yeah, my 2 cents.
I think it's great. And that really kind of takes me over here to which one comes first? Is it the tech stack or is it the client experience? So, you know, really it's hard to say which thing should you focus on first, and really how do you get a really good set of tools in order to make a good client experience? So any thoughts on chicken and eggs?
Yeah, I would say, you know, I think client experience is really important. To kind of touch off what Heather said there was, we went through an exercise, just kind of learning ourselves about what this customer journey looked like, and understanding how that, you know, the process, the kind of handoff from marketing to sales and sales to onboard and onboard the service, and what you need to do to kind of keep those things kind of flowing along and not to be kind of against each other, right? So you have the sales process that widely differs from your onboarding process, and that creates confusion for your clients. And so we kind of blueprinted it out and looked at it from okay, what is the client experience through each of these stages? What do we think they're experiencing through those stages? And then what piece of the technology are we utilizing to kind of guide them through those stages? And so it was a really kind of eye-opening thing, because I think as accountants, you kind of have a thought of like, well, this is what I want this, you know, experience to be. But your clients have a wide variety of experiences just because of how they interact. Maybe they're not as good as technology. Maybe they didn't like the process. Maybe it felt cold. Maybe it felt different from the sales process, or didn't feel like your firm that they got to learn about through your marketing and sales. And so I think understanding that piece is super important. And then once you kind of get that right, then you build into that technology and how do I utilize that with my clients and make it a seamless process that is organized and keeps them up to date and helps them make sense of what's going on. It feels like they're being cared for and not being like, all right, I've sold you, they're just dumped off to someone else, and now they kind of feel lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because looking at some of the comments in chat too, one of the things that Elizabeth said was that she loves working with attorneys. Well, that's definitely, there's a lot of technology out there for accountants to be able to focus in that area. So having a good experience all the way through, part of that is definitely doing exactly what you said, Josh, is having a focus of what is it that you want to do, where are you going, and then you can kind of fill in the gaps in between. So I want to share some tech stacks here because I really like what you each have done. And so this is what everybody here on the panel has done, is they've created their tech stack. And so that way we could go ahead and talk through what is it that you're using within your firm, and then also kind of dive a little bit into that onboarding piece. But this is a lot of apps. And Brian, I'm going to go ahead and move over to your next slide where you really you created a nice map of the flow of those apps. And so I'm going to be quiet so that way you can talk us through this.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely too many apps, I would say. I think we're up to like 40 apps, to be quite honest. But Yeah, so this one I've talked about a lot, actually. I think I've done some other webinars on this specific workflow, but it has definitely morphed over time. But I mean, you can kind of see this is directly from Zapier and what it would pretty much look like. Kicked off with the service acceptance through practice ignition. Woo, practice ignition. And then we're using Active Campaign. So that's essentially our CRM/email marketing tool. So we have all of our, client details in there, different, campaigns they've clicked on, that sort of thing, different campaigns we want to send them. So we have kind of all that stuff being updated from the service acceptance. And then Zapier kind of plays around with some info in there, going down different paths based on, if they're a new client or what service they've actually accepted. And from there, they get added to this onboarding list, right? So then we're on the kind of that second row, and that the one next to that is the email sequence. That's actually like a drip campaign, completely unrelated to like doing anything else through adding to different apps, but it actually just basically requests all kinds of information from the clients. And that's been one that we definitely update often because we get a lot of feedback from clients on how they like to get this information. I kind of look at it like if you can satisfy 80% of the clients that you're signing on, then, go with that process. But that one gets dripped out. We got our folders created in share file, and then messages kind of sent around through Slack just to notify the team, create channels, that sort of thing. So works really well. I've been iterating on it for probably the last year. I think I've changed out apps, brought in new ones, removed steps, added steps, changed steps. So lots going on in it for sure. And it definitely helps us with our onboarding.
So with Slack, are you using that for internal or external with clients also?
Mostly internal, like 99%. I think we just started letting in some clients through like shared channels. We have, I think, three channels that we've allowed clients to kind of come in and chat with us about, but for the most part, just internal.
Brian, you and I have talked a lot about your client onboarding process over the years that we've known each other. And one of the things I love about your client onboarding is that drip campaign process that you have that really asks the clients for the information in dribs and drabs so that they don't feel overwhelmed by having, being asked to upload everything at once and get everything together up at once. I think that is brilliant, in my opinion, because it gives it to them in, digestible pieces, maybe that's the word. And it also gives you a little bit of breathing room too, right? Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, what is your client response to that?
Yeah, well, so, I mean, I think that's actually the important thing for us is the response, because since it's going through an actual email marketing tool, we can see that they're opening the emails, clicking through stuff, right? Versus if you just sent, an email through Microsoft or G Suite, you're not going to be able to see what they're doing with that email, right? So, we've outlined it in, I think it's 4 steps right now. So we have the initial welcome email, like here's a couple things just to get done right away. A couple days later, there's an intro to me from Sean. So the email comes from Sean initially, the welcome one. And then he introduces me into the process, and a couple more things in that email. And then the emails start coming from me. So, here's some software access that we're going to send you. Here's a couple things that we agreed on, which obviously we can't really make that dynamic, but it's usually the things that are the same across every single client. And then it kind of culminates in requesting them to book that onboarding meeting. So the whole process takes about 2 weeks, right? And that gives us the time to actually sit back, like figure out how we want to do it internally. And then from there, get all the software set up, get the calendar set up, that sort of thing. So it works well. I like it.
Awesome.
Yeah, I agree. So this is, you brought up a really good point, the introduction to other team members. I mean, I feel like that's an area that we all struggle is, if you've got a team bigger than just one, making sure that you've let the rest of your team be introduced to the client and vice versa. Internally, we talk about the client, but the client doesn't always know that there's a whole team that supports them. So having that piece automated makes sure that it happens.
Yeah, and I had one other question / comment, Brian, was, and now I can't remember it because I just looked at somebody's question in the question panel. So I'll see if I can remember it and then I'll ask you. Sorry.
I think the question that you were looking at maybe was Alexa's question that was asking about the blue. What's the blue indicate? And I think these are just.
That's Active Campaign is the name of the app. Yep. Oh, I know what it was. So the other thing I wanted to point out is at the add to service specific list, wasn't that also like based on what service they've engaged for, it goes down a different drip campaign, right? Just kind of brilliant too.
No, we haven't built out that, but that is
Okay.
something that we're definitely looking at, right? But yeah, to the first path there is based on the service, right? So if someone only accepts a tax proposal, then they'll go down that tax list or service list, and there's different tasks that go on within the Zap, and then if it's bookkeeping, it'll do something else. So, but yeah, the drip campaign, yeah, that's something else that we're looking into for sure, because we need different information when it's taxes versus bookkeeping.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that goes into that project work. And so, Josh, you've got some different apps that you use here. And so, do you want to share anything about your apps that you're using?
Yeah, I mean, I think specifically, and this is probably across the board for all of us here, is utilizing Zapier in the onboarding process of, when they sign that engagement letter and practice initiation, that then creates kind of the flurry of activity for us on the background of doing things like, we use Trello for our workflow. So send up the Trello cards and the appropriate boards, depending on what type of service that is, getting it signed to the appropriate accountant, having the right, service level details in there, kind of pointing back to, or we even have it set up so you can click in and goes back to practice initiation to the actual scope details there. From there, in our onboarding, we also then set up a time through Calendly that allows us to kind of schedule that onboarding meeting. So giving them the time to pick the time for our clients to pick which time works best for them. And we get that scheduled there. That also sets up our Basecamp project management account for them. So we're able to kind of use that Basecamp as kind of our internal work papers and communication internally. So it's somewhat like Slack, but with some other things in there as well. We put our work papers in there. We put, kind of key information and things in there as well. And then also set up like our Google Drive folders and things like that. So we kind of do that kind of kickoff through practice initiation to kind of create those steps there. Similar to Brian, I think our process is usually about 2 to 3 weeks, kind of depending on what services are going on. If it's just a brand new company, that's a much more quicker because we kind of want to jump in there, get things from them to start the process rolling. We also, but we may take longer depending on how big the company is, right? So we had a company that come on pretty recently that was bigger, and that onboarding process really was more like a month-long time period. And we even talked about internally how we don't have right now, but what we really want to get to is kind of almost have like a 3-month or a 90-day onboarding period, where we were going to get the services going in those first couple of weeks in our softwares and get them access to all that stuff and start the work, but also kind of layering that in a bit, because even if you are, hey, we're going to drop you into this accounting software, we're going to put you on Gusto, we're going to do these things, right? Like it can be just overwhelming. And so kind of easing them into the process, easing them into some of the training, kind of doing different handoff meetings, and then kind of ending it with like a ending of the onboarding meeting to be able to talk through, any feedback they have from us through onboard and make sure they are being taken care of, what they signed on for through the sales process is what they're getting through this 90-day period, and make sure if there's any issues that we're kind of correcting and identifying them at that point.
I actually like that you stated a few times that you have this window of time that sets the expectation that we're not going to just get started tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's a process. It's a back and forth. It's a how quickly do you get the details to me that I need in order to start my job or start that phase of it. So setting the expectations right away, I think helps everybody, because of course, if you're able to meet those expectations or exceed those expectations, well, then that's a win for everyone.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's just learning from experience of, when we initially thought about through onboarding was a very quick period let's get them up and rolling. We're going to start working for them, right? And we found from that we weren't taking time to, properly train our clients, properly get to know them, have them get to know our processes, have them get to know their team that's working with them that's different from the person who sold them. And it just created some confusion on the client's end. They felt rushed. And so just from feedback and making mistakes on our own end, we've kind of changed up our processes and started to really slow down that to now that becomes more of an extensive period of time and kind of that meaningful, handoff and from the sales to the onboarding to the actual serving our clients.
And I feel like that comes from experience. We do the same thing in our firm as we set, with the project, we set the expectations early on. And I really just pull one question out a week. And so one task, one question, whatever it is, so that way we're still working on it, but they're busy too. And I'm a big believer in nobody wants to wake up in a brand new world. So in an integration situation, I need all the details. Yeah. And so sometimes it takes a bit to gather all of that.
Yeah, and it does. And it's, I think the more you rush it, the more the data you're going to get is bad, or it's not, or they get frustrated, and that's just going to slow you down anyway. So the more you can kind of ease them into that transition, particularly if they are transitioning from their accountant, that can be kind of quite different experience. So making sure that they feel comfortable through that process.
Yeah, I agree. Heather, I'm going to pull your slide up next. There it is. So do you want to talk through some of the tools that you use? And then you have a diagram that I want to make sure that we share too.
Sure. So I actually use Practice Ignition for both of my firms as my engagement letter. And I use Practice Ignition. I just started using actually the billing system for both of them as well. It's flexible and allows me to take deposits, and I can do all kinds of different, configure the payment in different ways, which I love. I'm using in Back Office Ally, which is the bookkeeping and tax firm where we have recurring work. We're using Carbon. We're about to actually transition from regular Carbon over to the Intuit Practice Manager, which has a nice integration with ProConnect Tax Online, which is the tax software that we're using for the firm. We use Calendly for our appointment. We use ShareFile. Most of these apps that you see here are the same across both of my companies, but the big differences are Carbon is only used in Back Office Ally, and Calendly I use for Back Office Ally, but I actually use Acuity Scheduling in Satterley Training Consulting because there's features in Acuity that I need for my training classes that I offer. So yeah, so those are the apps that I use. If you want to go to the next slide, I'll kind of walk through my onboarding experience for Back Office Ally. Yeah, so we start with a templated email, and I strongly encourage anyone who's not using templated emails to start, because they're a huge time saver. I know you and I, Liz, we have them for Happy Hour too. And so I have templated emails. So if somebody reaches out to me via Find a Pro Advisor, whatever, right? They reach out for, because they're interested in our services, I can immediately select one of these templated emails and send it off to the client. I have to do that in Gmail because at this time I don't have that set up in Carbon. But I just send a canned email with a link to our Calendly, calendar, and then it uses a round robin to schedule either my partner or I for that initial kind of sales meeting. And that integrates with our Google Calendar, which we can both see what we're doing. So that's really well for us. Then we have our client meeting, and if we find out they're not a good fit, it ends there. If we find out they are a good fit, then at that point, what I do is I send another templated email to them with a link to an Airtable form that gathers all the client info that I'm going to need to set them up in Practice Ignition and QuickBooks. So what it does at this point is once they complete that form, they actually self-onboard themselves, which is really cool. So they complete that form, and then what Zapier does is it goes and it looks into QuickBooks Online to see if they already have a QuickBooks company that has been added to our QuickBooks Online accountant. If they do, then what it does is it just uses that and it kind of stops, right? If it doesn't find one, then it creates a new one. And we have an integration, QuickBooks Online is very tightly integrated with ProConnect Tax Online. I have the customer set up in QuickBooks because that's where all the detail information, I want the detail information to go. Then what I do is I go in, and this is manual, I go into Practice Ignition and I pull up the contact name from the sync from QuickBooks to Practice Ignition, because they actually sync, right? And then I create the engagement letter, okay? Practice Ignition also syncs over to Carbon. So it will go and create the contact in Carbon. They have a direct integration. Once they sign the engagement letter, then what happens is Zapier comes into play again. I don't want to onboard them into my share file and into other places in Carbon until they actually have signed that engagement letter. So what it does then is it creates a user in LastPass. It creates my entire folder structure for my clients automatically in ShareFile. It creates a user, and then it can create. It creates the work. Actually, Practice Ignition doesn't. Zapier doesn't create the work. The Practice Ignition actually creates the work. So I have a wrong arrow there, and then I need to go in and manually assign the contact that was brought in this first step to the company that was created in the second Zap. So that's what we have going on now. As there are more actions and triggers in Zapier that are exposed through Carbon, I'm hoping that we're going to be able to automate this even more, because it's still, once we get into the Carbon, there's still some manual stuff that we have going on there. But that's our process. And I mean, we really don't manually set anyone up in really any of our systems besides going in and kind of linking things together. So that's my process for Back Office Ally. I have a completely different process for Satterley Training Consulting.
Well, and I think that's a good point. So I actually want to jump off on that and just say, I like your map that you lined out. I really liked Brian's map that he lined out to say this is the workflow. And to your point, sometimes whenever you're doing different functions, you have different tools that you use. And so being able to have the right tools for the right type of task is really important.
It is important. Like, for example, I don't use Carbon in Satterley Training and Consulting. I use Pipedrive. Pipedrive works better for me for tracking the different types of that type of work and that type of lead. And Acuity Scheduling, like I said, includes features that Calendly doesn't to help me host classes. So I can actually have a calendar event that's actually a class that I can have multiple people register for, and it can collect the payment. I also use Monday as my task manager for my projects, because I can share it with my clients. So we actually have a shared Monday board where I can set up timelines, I can upload documents. It's just basically a collaboration space. It's kind of like, I call Monday like Trello and Slack had a baby. That's how I feel like Monday is, because you have the messaging, you have the ability to set up the Trello boards and all that, but it's like they came together and then there was Monday. So that's what I'm using for that.
Well, the nice thing about Monday is that you can assign tasks to people and they get alerted that they have a task. And so that's one of the biggest things that's different from Slack or Trello, is that you really can't assign a to-do task to a particular person. And Monday has a flow chart and order. And so it really keeps everybody on task.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. And it's got a ton of widgets. You can like do some, and it has llamas. That's all I'm going to say. It's got llamas.
Asana's got unicorns, though.
What does?
Asana.
Asana has unicorns?
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know that.
They fly across the screen when you finish a task.
That's awesome.
Okay, well, that's really, you have me with animals. That's all I got to say. I think what's interesting, and everybody I think that's with us today would agree, you all have some similar apps, but then a couple of different apps that you've pulled in that do particular jobs for a specific need. And so, really the idea here is to use technology to be able to fit your workflow and not vice versa. So don't find a technology that doesn't fit your workflow. And sometimes that means, Brian said it earlier, sometimes that means that you try something and then you throw it away, you replace it with another thing. And, in these kind of group situations where we're talking about what is it that we're doing and using in our firms, this is where we get ideas. This is where we say, okay, well, maybe I want to get rid of Trello and maybe I want to plug in Monday or whatever it is that you're wanting to use and plug it in. but there's a few apps here that unite everybody.
Yeah, and I think that's it. We just had a question from Beth that was saying, she was asking a question about Trello sending an onboarding questionnaire to clients, and I would just say, in all of our tech stacks, and I didn't see it on your list, Josh, but I'm pretty sure you use Zapier too, because you're going to be on a webinar with me in 2 weeks. But Zapier is kind of the glue that kind of holds all of these workflows together, right? So we're using Zapier to, and we have an episode about Zapier. Zapier was actually our sponsor. So if you want to learn more about Zapier, you can go to theapier.com and watch, the episode about it. But basically what it does is it allows you to create automations between the apps that you use if there isn't a native one available. And even if there is a native one available, with Zapier you can do what you want. You're not confined to what the native integration can do.
So I want to pull over the Practice Ignition. So everybody here had Practice Ignition on their app sheet. And so my question to you is really, why Practice Ignition? So I don't know if we want to answer that in kind of a short sentence, because I want to also move into a couple of other questions. But Practice Ignition is one of the things that's uniting us here.
Should I go first?
Yes, Josh, please.
All right. I'll go first. Yeah, I mean, we signed up for it back in December 2017, but it was from a demo from Tom Maxwell, actually, at QuickBooks Connect Toronto. And just immediately when we saw it, we're like, this is amazing. We need this because it's going to save us so much time. And even if you look at, the Zaps that we've been showing there for our onboarding workflow, like that is the trigger, right? So for us, it was more, we don't have to print out or like create a Word document for the proposal, send it off, get the client to sign it, send it back, file it, all this. It's all in Practice Ignition now. So huge time saver there, definitely.
Well, and what about Zapier?
What about Zapier?
Well, the fact that it integrates so nicely.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
All three of you were talking about, Zapier and pulling in that next piece and having the next piece that maps over to the next app.
Yeah.
I mean, not all apps are that open to be able to format and schedule out the next task.
For sure.
So it's a good feature. So Heather, do you want to point out any of your favorite features, or is there anything else that you want to share about Practice Ignition?
Yeah, it's easy. So, I mean, that's why I love it, is that it's easy and it takes, I mean, they have a template library. So they have a template library. So I was able to take a lot of those templates and kind of tweak them for my firm. Firms, I should say. And it's, you have templates, which you have templates for your engagement letters, and then you have templates for your services, and you can be very creative with the formatting on that. So when I create a proposal for a client, it takes me just, a couple of minutes. It's, before, the old way was, I had to go into a Word document and do mail merges and all, or whatever, do, stuff like that. So it's easy. And then the nice thing too is I get the legal signature, right? So they're signing the engagement letter, and then I can also collect the deposit, and it posts it to QuickBooks. So I don't have to, so all I do is match it to the bank feed. So it's easy. Like it's just easy. I don't have to, it's set it and forget it, right? You send the engagement letter, they sign it, and off it goes.
So one of the things that makes me laugh is that Practice Ignition has really mastered the client onboarding experience, because I agree with you, Heather, it is easy. And not every technology is easy to use, but it has this nice flow of, this is your next step. Here's your next step. And so it really takes you through, you're quickly using it because you've gone through the setup, and then it shows you the templates. Like you said, it's in our accounting terms. It's types of templates that work both for ongoing engagements that are reoccurring, and then also just projects. And one of the things that's really cool, whenever somebody says, what do you charge for that? I say, have you ever looked at Practice Ignition and gone in to go look at what they recommend that you charge? That's kind of the industry average. So they even have some recommendations on billing.
No, they do. And I mean, it's been, I've been really happy with it. I mean, I used it in Satterley Consulting, and I liked it so much that I now use it in Back Office Ally. So yeah, I'm a big fan.
So I want to popcorn this question because we had a questionnaire that we sent out to everybody to say, hey, what's your favorite features? What's your apps that you're using? And one of the questions on there was, what is the cost benefit of using Practice Ignition? You know, there's always a cost for any type of technology, and is it worth it? And everybody had a very unique answer. And so I'd love to kind of pass around the mic right now and say, do you want to share what your experience has been?
Yeah, I can jump off there first. So, you know, I think when I look at the kind of cost benefit piece, it was really looking at kind of the labor and all the time and effort it took before we had Practice Ignition. So we, you know, this was a number of years back in our firm. We had kind of gone through a tax season and realized like how much time we were spending putting together engagement letters and getting them all unique to each person with the right price and the level of services and sending all of that stuff out and then waiting for them to sign it and following up if they signed it. And do we have it back yet? Do we not have it back? Do we start our services? And just the time and effort in this, the you know, all the manual effort that it took, just kind of, you know, I started opening my eyes like, hey, there's got to be a better way to do this. And so when we initially looked at Practice Ignition was for kind of the tax side of our practice was how can we make this process a lot more easy and seamless for us? And for us, it, you know, it saved us a ton of time at the beginning of tax season because we weren't, you know, creating all these engagement letters from scratch. It's a great feature in PI that allows you just to bulk roll forward your engagement letters year. So, you know, if I had sent all these engagement letters at the beginning of last tax season, I can roll them forward, update them, adjust them, you know, take out the ones for clients that maybe aren't around anymore, add in, make sure I have the ones in for new clients. And that becomes a really simple, easy process. And that saved us a lot of time in making sure that we have those engagement letters out there, that they got sent out on time with the right prices and right services and went out to the right person in the first place. And so that just really saved and took a lot of effort from our team of doing that work. And then it's the follow-up on that of, right, have they signed the engagement, right? I can see in Practice Ignition exactly, okay, who's signed, who's not signed, have automatic reminders be sent to them on a schedule of my choosing because and it allows them to get those emails, say, hey, you still need to sign this engagement letter. And then the big key piece here, I think, for us too was collecting all the payments, right? So, again, you know, we had a process before that. Yeah, we used like an ACH processor in the background, but it still required us to go in there, you know, click in, process the payment, make sure they got the invoice, tie it all together in the back end, right? And that just saved us tons of time. So as I kind of look back and say, okay, you know, now that we use PI across our firm, how much time does it save us on onboarding during tax season, onboarding a new client? And, you know, I was factoring like, hey, we're going to save about 160 hours a year. And we do. We probably even save more than that now. And if you average that out, like that's an hour of work that someone could have done on a client versus not, and come up with a rate for that. You know, we're saving at least $24,000 a year just on ROI of just not doing manual work. And then their big cost benefit savings was not having to go collect money, right? Just the, you know, how much pain and toil and effort is there? You do the work for a client and now you have to go get them to collect and pay, and they're not paying. And so you have to follow up with them. And that's just another layer of effort or work of getting money and cash flow in, making sure we actually do get paid and someone doesn't stiff us. And saving money there. So, you know, calculating it all in for us, we probably save close to $54,000 a year using PI, which is significant dollars. But, you know, as we kind of look back and as we built the practice using PI, we can clearly see those efforts being saved across the board and not have to worry, okay, are we going to get paid or not, or have to invoice or things like that.
Yeah, I agree with you. So the automation there is the thing that saves the time. So once you learn the tool, then it's, you know, it's repetition. It's like once you learn how to use your smartphone, then you can do it over and over again. And so, Brian, is there anything there that you want to build off on as far as onboarding? I know we want to do a demo, so I want to just, you know, one of the things that you had put in there was that per client, you were saying that it saves you X amount of time.
Yeah. So when we're onboarding a client, I'd say it's probably about 8 hours that it saves us. a full day, right? So if I kind of relate that to the annual cost of practice technician, I was just on the website and I looked at the annual cost, and I think the lowest tier is $85, which is about $1,000 a year, right? So simple math, right? Let's say your rate is $100 an hour. If you sign one client in a year, that's going to save you $800. Like if you're saving as much time as I am with like 8 hours every time I onboard someone, right? So you're almost paying for practice technician just from that one client, right? So if you think about it, if you do want to be a growth oriented firm and you want to keep adding more clients, it's just going to compound and compound when you look at that cost versus how much time you're actually saving using practice technician.
I agree. So I appreciate you sharing that with us, because I feel like it's really important to understand that piece of how is it really benefiting you. And so to that note, I'm going to go ahead and say, let's do our toast, because it'd be great to then just pass over into our demo.
And I just want to, well, go ahead and toast, but I just also wanted to say, just to chime in for smaller firms, I do about 20 clients a year. And my engagement letter and billing, even if I say it took me an hour per client, at my hourly rate, I mean, I'm saving at least $3,100 per year just based on that. And it's a whole lot more than that. And with Back Office Ally, we don't do billing. Our billing is completely automated. Not my partner and I, we don't spend any time creating client invoices, collecting money. It is completely on autopilot. So how much time is that saving us? I can't even, we've always had it. So there's no way for me to gauge again, like what it would be taking us if we didn't have it. So,
well, you're saving the pain of the back and forth emails, the back and forth gathering. Totally. I have it.
Totally. Yeah,
I agree.
All right. Sorry.
No, I think that was really important. I think that, one of the questions that we were being asked is, and Josh, you might see it in chat. Somebody was asking, what's the size of your firm? So with that in mind, I want to tell you how excited I am for this drink. I am a huge coffee drinker, so I even put an extra bit of cream in mine because that's just the way I like it. And it makes me very, very happy to say that coffee drinks are my favorite. And so one of the notes that went along with this was that they were saying that it wakes you up and gets you going with the buzz. So
I did mine. I put a little bit of Kahlua in mine. So I did the vodka with the coffee, and then I put a little bit of Kahlua in, so it's really yummy.
Well, I have an espresso machine, cappuccino frothy, and so I put the froth on the top. I did.
Yummy.
I did. I like it that way. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing so that way I can pass it over to Josh.
Can we do our poll first?
Oh, sure. We can do
Or do we want to do our demo first and then do?
I'd like to do the demo just so that way everybody can see it for a minute and then do it.
Okay.
All right. I will share my screen here. We'll dive on in. Perfect. Let's see. Everyone see that all right? We're good?
Yes.
Perfect. Cool. So I'm going to kind of walk you through kind of just a simple case scenario of using practice technician on a new client they maybe have. One of the nice features that rolled out at PI here just recently is this Discover page. So if you're new to PI, this Discover page kind of walks you through the kind of quick steps to get you up and running and to send out that first proposal. So everything from getting your branding up there to uploading your engagement letter, and drafting that first proposal. Real simple and easy to do. So if you're new to PI and want to run a trial on this, this is a great way to jump in and just kind of get your feet wet in this. So let's kind of walk through a example here. Maybe I'm working now with a new client that came in. They want to work with us on some different services, maybe some monthly accounting, some tax work. What do I need to do to kind of jump in to get them set up and get them rolling here? So the first thing I want to make sure I have is my services in here. There is a service library that is built into PI. So if you haven't built out all of your services, all your descriptions, this is a great place to start. All you have to do is click on example services, click on accounting and bookkeeping, and click on import services. And that brings in a set of services from accounting to tax, advisory based on the country that you're in too. So the tax stuff that comes in for me is gonna be different than the stuff that comes in for Brian in Canada. So it is customized to your country. There's also a great set of services here too right now, particularly this time if you're helping out clients you know, doing PPP loan applications or things like that. We have a set of services in here set up for that as well. So once you have your services in there, you can go ahead and start that process on your proposal. I'm going to jump in here into the proposal section. And so I'm going to start here and create a new proposal. I can do that here at the top section here and click proposal, or I can go over here and click new proposal here. I'm going to give that proposal a name. So maybe it's monthly accounting services. If I can spell. And then I'm going to put our client in here. So either I need to create a new client on the fly, or if I have this hooked up with my CRM, for instance, right? So we use HubSpot. We have that hooked in, pulls in those clients over. I can type in maybe a new client here. There we go. Let's do Red Brick Brewing Company. It has in our contact information. Then we want to put in a proposal date. So let's say this is going to be a 12-month period here that we're going to do it for. I'm going to say I'm going to start this here this month. We're going to roll it for the next 12 months. I can choose if I want to do recurring billing, which really means after that 12 months is over, are we on a kind of a month-to-month basis in our contract? So I can continue to bill in that case, or I can stop and just once that contract's done, there'll be no more billing after that. Choose what my recurring period is, whether that's monthly or weekly, and then jump into what day I want that invoice to go out. So if I have all my recurring invoices go on the 1st of the month or the 5th of the month, whatever your process is, you can choose that here and get that set up. Next step here is going to choose those services. So I can set up my services and kind of organize them by different job types. So maybe my accounting services versus my tax services, or I can put them all into one job name here. So I'm just going to type in here accounting services and start going here and pick through my library. So I'm going to do some accounting services here that are on a recurring basis, priced at $7.50 a month. I can enable pro rata. So if they sign after the 1st of the month or whenever that first billing date is, it will go ahead and pick up that period, or I can leave that as is. I'm going to go ahead and click Save Service here. I'm also going to pick up my tax services. So I'm going to be doing an 1120S for them as well. I can choose a different billing type here. So I can either bill them up front. So when they sign this, I'm going to go ahead and get them billed, or I can bill them at the end. One of the things that I like to do in our firm is we do on completion, but then we do deposits. So if they sign this engagement letter, they have to pay 25% up front. And that gets us that money up front that kind of gets them bought into they're going to do the service with us, and then we'll collect the rest at the end there. All right, so I got my services set up here. Next, I'm going to make sure I pick my engagement letter I'm going to use, whether it's a standard letter that I've built, or if I have different letters for different types of services, I can pick that out as well. And then I'm going to go on this presentation, which I think is a really cool piece of PI. And so this is a way for us to kind of customize what they get. And so I can put in a brochure here. I can add in a video here. So I'm going to type in a video here from YouTube, drop it in there, and then I'm going to talk to my client and say, hey Bob, here is the proposal I promised. Looking forward to working with you. And then I can, if I have a next steps video too, so if once they sign here, there's a video kind of describing, okay, here's now the onboarding process you're going through, I can add that in as well. And then here's where I set up my payments. So we have the ability to do credit card or ACH payments. So, you know, maybe you don't want to do credit cards because you don't want to deal with the fees, that's fine. Just turn off that option, then they don't get that option to select. And then I can also require payment or not. So if I require payment from the sign, I want to make sure I have that enabled as well. And then I want to keep this integrated here. So in this case, once they sign and get going here, it'll invoice through QuickBooks Online, and they'll get their invoice generated through there. So once I create this now, I'm going to go ahead and just move this away in acceptance here. And now I can show here what this looks like for them. So on the client side, they get to see your logo here. It pops up with the video as well as the little brochure I've added in here. Just gives them more information about your company. Maybe you already have this set up here. This kind of tells a little bit more about what we're doing, who we are, who our team is, right? And some contact info. This has a little video, and here's my little note for them. Next, they can go in here, see what services we're offering. So in this case, the accounting and tax services that we selected. The payment schedule here, so when they're actually going to get billed. So in this case, they got to pay $275 up front for that tax services. They're going to get billed monthly for $750, and then at the end, when we get the taxes done, they'll get billed $825. Then I can have my payment method in here. So in this case, they're going to add their payment method for that bank account. They can just verify with using Plaid or do the micro deposits, and then from there, I can go here, click, and sign the engagement letter, and then we are off the roll here. So that is how the process works in PI for sending out that engagement letter, getting them signed, and ultimately getting them paid. In the interest of time, I will throw it back here.
Perfect. I appreciate that. So Heather, let's get that poll launched because I think that, oh, perfect. Thank you. Great timing. So there's a lot of questions that are rolling in. And so one of the questions that Jim has, thank you for answering that, Heather, is that can you do hourly billing, which I had never done before. So
yeah, so you can hourly is one of the options you can do there. It's a little bit more manual process of you going in and putting in your hours to then run that. But you can do hourly billing through PI, yeah.
Perfect. So the poll that's up right now, all that it's asking is, do you want to have PI reach out to you and give you more information and do, one-on-one demo and take you through all of the different areas that you might have questions?
I had a question for you, Josh. Matthew Fulton's joining us from Facebook land. And his question is that he wants to be able to add addendum pages that can be signed. And he wants to know if there's an option to do that, where say he had some kind of, I'm trying to think of the word of it, a non-disclosure agreement or something that needs to be signed along with it. How do people handle that? Do they just add that to the engagement letter or?
Yeah, so yeah, you can add it to the engagement letter, certainly, and that can be in kind of that terms and conditions that exist each time that they have to sign, right? So that kind of that mutual NDA could be part of that. So that's typically how it's done. If you're doing stuff outside that, right, usually it's in a similar e-sign-in service. But yeah, typically if you want that kind of NDA stuff or any type of terms or conditions you want in there, so you can always put that in the engagement letter piece, and that will be part of the thing that they sign.
The other thing that I have done, Josh, too, is I've set up Zaps for some of my clients that basically when the service is accepted, the engagement letter is accepted, it automatically sends those documents using another app. So the Zap, basically that's a trigger, and then it automatically sends it in another app so you can sign it.
That's another great way to do it, yep.
Yep. All right, I'm going to count everybody down. I'm going to give you 5 seconds to vote, and then I'm going to close the poll. So if you'd like someone from Practice Ignition to reach out to you, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. I'm going to go ahead and end that polling. Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
And so we have a question directed towards Josh. I don't know if you see it in the Q&A.
Yep, I see it.
Perfect.
Yeah, so the question was, can we do a fee increase, the recurring billing option selected for the bookkeeping package, right? So you're increasing your fees at some point in time. Yep, you certainly can do that. It's as simple as doing basically a kind of a change order in PI where you're going to have them kind of re-sign that accepts that new price. So that's a way just to you basically click adjust proposal when you have that proposal up and running, and you put your new price in there, and then you can go and have them sign it, and then you're good to go going forward. Or even if you want to accept on their behalf, or that's just kind of the purpose there, you can do that as well.
Thank you. And then I want to make sure that everybody knows that we have the really nice discount. So being able to say that there's a 50% off promotional plan for the first 3 months, and this is for new users. So make sure that you grab that bit.ly link and use that if you're signing up. That's a really great price break.
And we also have that link on the Barbook page. So if you want to head over to the Barbook page, I'm not sure that's been updated yet, but it should be by the end of the day.
Perfect. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
Oh, It went by that so fast. And so, Heather, do you want to go ahead and fill the people in on this other thing that's going on?
Yeah. So on Wednesday, next Wednesday, June 17th, Josh and I are going to offer a free webinar with Practice Ignition. And we're going to share our top 10 Zapier hacks for cloud accountants and bookkeepers. So I had done this with Tom Maxwell, gosh, a little bit over a year ago, but I'm changing it up. I got new stuff to share. So if you want to join us for that webinar, please do. I'd love to see you there. And I'm going to share my new and improved top 10 Zapier hacks for cloud accountants and bookkeepers along with Josh. So it's going to be super fun. Very pumped for that, Josh.
Okay, and so if they don't get the registration link right this minute, is there a place that people can go and find out how to register, Heather?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and put that a link on our website. So if you go to the Barbook page for Practice Ignition, I'm going to leave the link there so you can go and do that. And Jim says the link worked for me.
Perfect.
So maybe try it again.
Okay. So I want to tell everybody that is here, thank you for staying. And I also want to say thank you to all of our panelists. It was really, really nice hearing a different perspective from all of you. It was nice to see your tech stack. So thank you for letting us in and having a window into what your processes are.
Thank you for having us.
Yep. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having me, Liz.
Well, of course. And so for anybody who is looking for more Appy Hour, be sure to head over to the website and you can sign up for those different links if you missed them. So the appyhour.com is where you can find more information, and you can find us on Facebook and you can find us on Twitter to get more information. And I'll share that right there. So the appyhour.com.
Fantastic. Do you want to share the next slide, Liz, about our next upcoming episode? I love this topic, by the way.
You read my mind. So Webgility is coming up, and we're going to be talking about sales tax nexus for e-commerce business.
Dun, dun, dun. Like you have to add that after you say that word, like that sentence, right?
Dun, dun, dun.
Frickin' nexus.
I know, but what do you do?
Right.
So you get better at it, and you share tips and tricks and what tools to use. So,
and we have an expert coming on the show, Colin, who's going to be educating us about this. So I do a lot of e-commerce stuff, so I'm super excited for this episode too.
Yep, we even learn things. It's great.
Yep.
So thank you, Practice Ignition, for hosting this webinar so that way we could tell everybody about what apps and tech stacks and use cases for Practice Ignition and how it's helped a lot of firms to be able to give a really good client experience and save the firm some time and keep it really clean and simple. And then we also want to say thank you to our Champagne sponsor, Right Networks. And until next time.
Bye, everybody. Take care.